How's it going, everybody?
Yeah.
Welcome to episode 2 of the Bootleg Report. Follow us on Twitter. I'm at StevTweets. Where are you? Where can you be found?
Oh, I am at Mr. Moon 966. Thanks for listening.
This is the Bootleg Report, where we follow all things on the internet and relay them back to you, whether it be leaked music, leaked movies, funny things that we find on the internet, scouring the internet so you don't have to, and bringing back whatever it is you need.
Right.
So today we're going to be talking about a couple different things. We're going to start it off with an album that I think we were both excited for, maybe in different ways, but both probably equally excited. Absol's These Days.
Right. Yes, episode 2 here. We kicked off the series here with last week's review and opinions on Neon Icon, the Riff Raff debut album. This week we're going to go ahead and continue with the hip-hop leaks, and like Steven said, we had another good one that kind of piqued our interest and that we just wanted to talk about, Ab-Soul.
So I actually want to start off asking you a question. Where were you, or how were you introduced to Ab-Soul?
Great question. I'm going to just go ahead and set it off, and let's set the expectation here that I don't know, and actually come to find out after listening to the album, I don't know a whole lot about Ab-Soul.
Right.
I've heard the name kicked around before, of course, with the TDE Black Hippy Camp.
Right.
Definitely heard some features from him. I know one of the our friend Cameron was the one that kind of introduced me to the whole Black Hippy Camp from way back when, a couple years ago. He was just raving about him, and I heard the name from there.
Right. I'm gonna sound like a real big hipster for a quick second. I've been listening to TDE and Black Hippy for a little while. I've been listening to him before Good Kid, Mad City dropped. I was listening to Kendrick back when he was K-Dot, and listening to Schoolboy Q when he dropped like Habits and Contradictions, some of his older mixtapes. Ab-Soul, I really liked his Control System album and some of his Abstract Mentality long term, his different mixtapes before that. Still waiting to kind of get into the other. I was listening to a little bit of Isaiah Rashad. He released something this year. J-Rock, I'm more into his features. Haven't really listened to any of his full lengths, but Ab-Soul, I kind of looked at before this year at least. I looked at Ab-Soul as number 2 in terms of Black Hippy and TDE. It was Kendrick, Ab-Soul, Schoolboy, and I think it's those two middle ones that kind of switched.
Yeah, I mean, I initially had heard that opinion from a lot of people as well, that Ab-Soul was going to be the next, the number 2.
Right.
And I guess I wasn't familiar with his previous work. So, I mean, I had gotten a couple of the mixtapes I had long term, I think 1 and 2.
Yep.
Didn't hear Control System. So this is definitely going to make me go back and take a listen to that.
Yeah. Ab-Soul has a certain aesthetic that's different from the other guys in Black Hippy and TDE. I think Ab-Soul he really identifies as Black Hippy to me. Like, if I think Black Hippy, I'm thinking Ab-Soul. Or at least that's kind of how it was. I guess now the person that you can relate to the most is probably Kendrick, just because he's in the public eye the most. But Ab-Soul has that whole, looking through my third eye kind of abstract.
I was surprised that he has the most content out, really, out of all of them, I think. Or maybe arguably, I don't know. There's a lot more work that he has to his credit than I had even known.
Oh, yeah. He's got a lot of stuff that he's released. You said you don't know a lot about Ab-Soul. Let's talk about Ab-Soul before we get into the album a little bit. Did you know he's legally blind?
So I actually just learned that. I was watching the Breakfast Club interview with him for this release. And, yeah, I became familiar with the condition that he suffers from and some of the stuff that he's gone through. Stevens-Johnson syndrome.
Yeah.
Hit him when he was a kid, and I guess he's got, the sunglasses are not for looks. He needs them.
Needs those. He has his lips are black. He has black lips going along with the song Black Lips Bastard that he had off of Control System. Kind of a posse cut, if you will. We're getting some sounds. I don't know what that is. we'll just move past. We'll work through it. Yeah, he legitimately is kind of a sickly guy, and he's kind of grown up and grown out of that a little bit. But that really you can identify him by his look. Definitely, kind of looks like a hippied out Eazy-E.
Yeah, he looks like he gives zero fucks.
He gives zero fucks. He's kind of a smaller guy too. Like I guess most of Black Hippy is half of Black Hippy. Him and Kendrick are both smaller guys. You look at I see you're looking at his Wikipedia page right now. He's got 3 actual releases. This is his third what he considers full length albums. You got Long Term Mentality, Control System, and These Days.
Right.
He had a couple of mixtapes and stuff before that. I think you're right in saying he's one of the more prolific members.
Yeah, I thought this was his debut album, but he says this is his third, so he's 3 deep.
Yeah. This is I guess his since Good Kid, Mad City came out from Kendrick, every member has kind of said, all right, now this is our debuts. Everything we've done before this, while they might be what we deem as like our full lengths, these are our debuts to the mainstream. Not mainstream debuts, because they're still on TDE for the most part. But these are our debuts to the public. With that being said, I'm going to start it off. We were listening to the album, kind of driving around and over the past couple days. I'm going to start off by saying when I first listened to this album, I was hugely disappointed.
Really?
Yes.
Just straight up off the bat?
Yes.
Okay.
And I'll tell you why. You look at the cover of this album.
It's pretty prolific.
It looks like it's going to be a deep album. And the first, not counting the first song that we let off with, God's Reign, but Tree of Life, 100 Stacks, Dub Sack, they're not deep songs. For the most part. I know you're going to disagree with me on Tree of Life, which I'm going to guess and say is one of your favorite songs.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely... I think it's solid. The album starts out pretty solid. Mm-hmm. I mean,
okay,
for someone that doesn't know a lot about Absol and his background, I think it starts off pretty strong.
Okay. I think I was spoiled with the album when it comes to me knowing his background, because he was always one of those guys that kind of came at his songs with like a really deep... He was supposed to be like the poet in Black Hippy, and then it comes off with not party tracks, but really basic tracks to me.
Yeah.
And I will say, the first thing I thought of when I listened to this album, I looked at it and I said, wow, this album is an hour and a half long. Each one of the songs are about 5 minutes. I downloaded the album at about 2 a.m, and I did not know if I was going to be able to get through it the first time. And the first thing I thought of with the whole first half of the album, and I'm gonna split the album. I'm gonna talk about it in halves. I'm gonna go God's Reign to Twacked, and then Just Have Fun to the end.
Okay.
The first half of the album, the first thing I noticed, the hooks ruined a lot of the songs for me. You might disagree with me.
Well, I know the first time I listened to it, the first time I gave it a go through, it didn't seem as like cohesive. It sounded like it was almost kind of pieced together.
Right. It sounded like a mixtape.
You kind of had to get into the flow of it.
Right. That's, and I was telling you earlier, every time I listen to this album, my opinion changes. Because at first, I was like, man, I'm disappointed. And then I would listen to I listened to the album first song through. So I was listening to God's Reign, and I said, okay, this is a pretty solid song. It seems like it's starting off pretty good. The hook could be a little bit better. It sounds like SZA is a little, I don't know, fading into the background in the hook. Mm-hmm. It doesn't seem as strong as it could be. And then it goes into Tree of Life, and that song is a pretty solid song. I would definitely say that's one of the more solid songs. Can we play that?
Tree of Life. Let's go ahead and load up Tree of Life.
Let's play Tree of Life. I'm going to take a sip of my Great White local beer.
So yeah, there's definitely a lot of music on this album. So that's gives you a lot to talk about for sure.
Yeah. That's 15 songs, and a lot of the songs have like bonus tracks after them.
Yeah, it kind of breaks the mold as far as the typical layout of an album.
Right.
So
the first like half of the album, I noticed the the actual verses are pretty solid. He's rhyming really well. Like this is, I mean, Absol's, his flow isn't what he's known for. He doesn't really rap double time. He doesn't really get complex, but his wordplay is what he's known for.
Right.
And some of that I think is solid. I think this song's too long.
I would say so. Yeah, I mean, talking about a lot of music here, he's kind of opening up, I think, with kind of like a general, like, I don't know if he's gearing this towards people that aren't really familiar with his music, but I definitely got a sense that he covered a broad range of topics within the first 3 songs. Like, within his verses, he kind of covers a lot of who he's about, and I definitely kind of got a good picture of it, but I don't know if that's consistent with his previous work.
Yeah, I actually want to talk to you about that. Being that you're not really familiar with Absol very much, what did you get from this? Who do you think Absol is?
I thought, Black Hippy for sure, like kind of that umbrella. I kind of got a picture or an idea. I made an assumption, let's say.
Okay.
He's not Schoolboy. He's not Kendrick.
No.
I think and just kind of going through, hearing things that he mentioned, maybe looking back at his like Wikipedia page, listening to that Breakfast Club interview. There's definitely so much there that he's a little different. I still want to take him in as a character, as a person, but I think a guy that's been through a lot, obviously with these illnesses you can bring it up right now. I guess he had a girlfriend that died.
Yeah.
At some point, that is, I think, a bigger topic in some of his previous work, but that's definitely a piece of who he is.
I think he mentions it straight up in God's Reign, the first track.
Yeah, something like that. It's a quick thing though. I was like, what? I caught it, and I was like,
and it's like, oh shit.
Right.
I think the song could have ended right here, by the way. Although I like the verse that comes after it, I think maybe he could have swapped this verse and the second verse and just ended it right now and then gone into the bonus track. I think it kind of drags from this point on.
Okay. Yeah, it kind of slows down here, and you're getting a little bit more of what you've already heard.
Right. Do you think, would you classify this as kind of a weed song?
I think on the surface, you would think that.
Right.
And that's maybe, I guess, supposed to be the appeal, but then there's definitely more to it, to where it's like, I've never heard someone put it into words like why you would want to be a tree and kind of like what that means. And I think it's a kind of a double entendre where you're thinking it's this and it might be about that, but there's also a little bit more that if you're open to it, you'll find it.
Right. At first, I kind of cringed when he talked about why do you think money's green, the color of that made me cringe at first. Now when I listen to it kind of just seems like, okay, that's just Absol being Absol. I think this song makes Dubsack redundant. I don't think Dubsack needs to be on the album.
I would agree. Yeah, that one I didn't like.
I don't think it's Absol. I don't think it. That one. I'm just gonna go through the list here and tell you the songs I don't like. We'll start it that way.
Right.
Dubsack, I don't like. I don't think it needs to be there. Never mind that. Rick Ross, I don't think that song needs to be there. And I would say, I think Twacked is a good song featuring Absol. It's not an Absol song.
Yeah, that one. I mean, I guess I'm just looking at the track listing, and where it falls is okay. I would like to see it laid out, the album laid out a little differently now that because I think 2 of my favorite songs are towards the back half of it, and I think I should at least put one of them in the beginning or the first half.
Right.
Those would be Closure and Stigmata.
I agree. Stigmata, I would say, is, I really like that song. I didn't, at first listening through it, I glazed over it, and I glazed over it because it was track 12, and I was already hugely disappointed. So by the time that song came on, I was like, okay, and I was tired.
Right.
I was super tired. But yeah, I think that song's really good. I think the last half of the album, going from Just Have Fun on through, I think that's a solid album. I think if it was Just Have Fun all the way down to track 15, and then you sprinkled in God's Reign, Tree of Life, and you did Hunted Stacks with Schoolboy doing the hook instead of Mac Miller.
Yeah.
And I would throw World Runners in there. as a good song. Even though I'm not a big fan of Lupe Fiasco.
Yeah, I would have to say that's probably one of them. If I see him on a track, I might try to avoid it.
Right, but with that being said, he overshadows that track. His actual, I think as a person, he's kind of ridiculous in how he's presenting himself. Like, dude, your first song was about skateboarding, and now you're going to talk about Illuminati and all this other shit.
Right.
I don't want to hear that.
Nope.
I think the song World Runners is actually pretty good, though.
Yeah. I haven't aligned with it. It hasn't really grown on me yet.
Right.
That being said, though, I think, and maybe I want you to touch on kind of maybe your second go through on the album, but after kind of feeling it out, and like when we were driving around listening to it, I think that if you were to put on pick three songs consecutively in a row, if you were to start at any point in the album, you're gonna get say if you go tracks 4, 5, and 6, you do have a good, based on those tracks, you have a good kind of understanding. But then so switch it up. If you go tracks 8, 9, 10, it's, if you listen to three tracks at a time, it kind of gives you a good chunk or a good basis. It has a good flow. It's enough to where it kind of starts high or might start low and covers a wide range.
Right.
So it's almost kind of nice to jump into it at any point on the album.
Right. And I definitely want you guys to listen to this album and reflect on what we're saying, if you can, because something I'm going to say here, it's really hard to put into perspective if you haven't listened to it. But I think a lot of mistakes were made on this album. A lot of choices that were made, I think, were influenced by how the album was recorded. Looking through the Wikipedia page, which you have up right now on this album, it was recorded in Mac Miller's house.
Okay.
There you go. So Absol stayed with Mac Miller, and he just recorded it. They got super high every day and recorded the album. That's why you got Mac Miller going through multiple tracks on this. He does the hook on 100 Stacks. He comes through on Ride Slow with his alter ego, Delusional Thomas, and ruins that song completely. And I want to talk about Ride Slow a little bit more. I love Danny Brown.
Right.
And I think they messed up there too.
It wasn't the Danny Brown that I wanted to hear.
And here's the thing. I re-listened to that song today because I felt the same thing. I listened to it, I was like, what happened? And I did the same thing with Kendrick Lamar's Interlude. I was like, what happened? These two guys who are usually really solid, it kind of fell flat. And I think it fell flat because of the beats.
Right.
Kendrick is rapping his ass off in Kendrick Lamar's Interlude, but the beat is clunky. It's really jazz based, and there's too much going on in the background, and there's not a solid backbeat for Kendrick Lamar's Interlude. It really falls flat. But if he had a solid backbeat to that track, it would have killed.
Yeah. I think that the production list is, I would expect it to see some bigger names maybe.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, no diss to those that are credited on the album, but
except for track 11, Sapiosexual is
Cole.
produced by J. Cole.
Yeah, that's a good thing.
Yeah. And that song,
not the best song though. I would say I don't really like it.
I'm going to tell you something about that song. That's a really good Schoolboy Q song.
Yeah.
If you listen to that song and you listen to it as a Schoolboy Q song, even his flow is a Schoolboy flow on that song. And the more I listen to it, I think it's placed poorly because it's coming out of Closure, which I agree with your initial thought on that song. That's one of the more solid songs on the album.
Right.
The hook is awesome on that song. The hook on Closure is really good.
Right.
Sapiosexual doesn't make sense following it because he's just talking about how he just wants to fuck people, and it doesn't make any sense.
After Closure and his being as heavy as that is, doesn't belong there.
And coming before Stigmata, Sapiosexual should have been a song in the beginning of the album,
or maybe shouldn't have been there. I don't know. I'm just
that song has grown on me the more I listen to it. It's one of those songs where I don't skip it and I listen to it and I'm like, oh, okay, this has a point to it. It's a good, fun song. I think there's too many fun songs that fall flat on this album. I think if that was the only fun song, you might look at it differently.
Okay.
But I want to talk about a song that's actually grown on me. Every time I listen to it, I like it a bit more. And that is track number 8. And that's Just Have Fun.
Yeah, definitely. I think a really good song that I think could have been a little bit higher up in the track listings.
Mm-hmm. And I think my favorite song on this album is the bonus track at the end of it.
Yes.
I think that song is amazing. That I would put up as one of my favorite Absol songs of all time. and I really like the inclusion of the yak yak into this song, the schoolboy ad lib. And the hook is good, you know. Do the drugs, don't let the drugs do you.
Yeah,
I think that's a credo that I live by in a lot of
go.
senses.
You can't let the drugs do you.
No.
Rule number 1.
But as good as this song is, I listened to it and I was like, okay, now I'm a little bit more interested in this. It came after I was kind of disappointed by the Kendrick track just based on the beat. But I listened to this, and he mentioned he does his Absol thing. He mentions Aleister Crowley. He mentions some really interesting things, which he's always the kind of rapper that like he wants to teach you. And I feel like the whole first album, or the whole first half of the album, he isn't teaching you. He isn't doing that intellectual conspiracy theory. I kind of look at Absol. It might sound weird at first. I look at Absol as the Joe Rogan of rap.
There you go.
He talks
Joe
about
Rogan.
He talks about drugs, DMT. He talks about going on hallucinogenic trips, but he also talks about conspiracy theories and interesting things. And
right.
If you put it through that spectrum, a lot of the songs don't make sense. Dubsack doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I mean, he is the type of person that you'd want to hear talk about those subjects, and not, in my opinion, not the Lupe fiascos. It's a little bit more like kind of covers who Absol is about as far as what I've seen so far.
He's a psychedelic rapper.
Yeah.
He is a psychedelic rapper in the very truest sense of the word. But I did want to go to that bonus track at the end of Just Have Fun.
Right.
And I want to just kind of let it play for a bit.
So it eventually breaks down and just kind of starts over here, which is something that he does throughout the album that, again, is kind of going in a different direction as the rest of hip-hop, or as what the typical layout would be.
Right, and I think the hook on this groove, I would listen to a whole album of this.
Yeah.
And that would be like top 10 albums for me. This is just
Absol on these type of beats.
Right.
Just slow
I think
it down.
this part of it is produced by Blended Babies. I think the first half is produced by Like. And there's a lot of features on this half of the song. And he does a different flow.
Yeah. Yeah, at certain points in the album, you're like, oh, who is this? And then it's just his different flows. It's, Absol in just a different kind of voice, different inflection.
Right. This is a great song. And this isn't even a song. This is an extra song. He only has one verse.
Taking it back to last week and Riff Raff's album, I think this I would compare it to Time a little bit, to where like it just kind of gets you in that good zone,
right?
And it has its own place on the album,
right? It's a weird thing because I feel like a lot of these songs come off and I'm like, what was that? And then something about it, either it's the bonus track or it's a line that he says or something, it saves it, and I'm just like, okay, no, that's the Absol I'm looking for. And I think a lot of that, and I don't want to keep bringing it back, but I think a lot of the bad on this album for me is due to the Mac Miller influence.
Yeah, I mean, who is the executive producer here on this album?
It doesn't list it on here.
Really?
Honestly, I'm going to say it's probably Absol and Mac Miller. And just, I mean, TDE is a very collective-based when it comes to the sound of an album. It's very collective based, so it's not like one person doing something.
Right. I want to play Closure real quick.
I want you to play Closure.
Fucking great song.
Very, very timely song, right?
Yeah, pretty just kind of simplistic and captures a lot of emotion and, not a whole lot going on, just kind of the ambiance of it.
And he doesn't really rap on this song.
Yeah.
I would say aside from the verse, or the chorus, he doesn't really sing on it either. But The verses are kind of just spacious, not a lot going on, as you said. But the hook drives it home. I think I hear like a clock ticking in the background of the beat too.
Yeah, it's slowed down enough to where it like really you can feel it a little bit more. Feels a little bit more organic.
And I definitely want to let the song go to the hook, because I think this is one of the better hooks. And that's one of my thoughts on the album, is that the hooks are bad. This hook is not one of them.
So I think that they were leading off with this as the first single of the album, because there was a video.
There was videos on some of the other. I think Dubsack was actually the first single.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Here we go with that chorus.
And it reaches a high right about now-ish, or a little bit. Right about here. Kind of opens up. I feel what he's saying.
Yeah. I think a different way to say what maybe everybody has gone through, or just a kind of a common thing to relate to, but the way that he's saying it and how he's kind of on a rise, and definitely kind of shows a humble sense to him, where he knows that it's probably hard for whoever the song is directed at to see him doing so well.
And it's a definite. I think there's a point in it where he says, I'm on the rise. I'm doing. I've always wanted to like do what I'm doing now, and I'm finally taking off. And always wanted to see me take off, and it might be, as you said, it might be hard to see it right now. Yeah, it's definitely one of the high points of the album. It's a real good way to say I miss you, but it's a really, really, really good song, really solid song. So I want to talk about two songs in tangent with each other that might not seem like they really fit: Stigmata and Ride Slow. Now, I like Absol, I like Action Bronson, and I like Danny Brown. It would have been great to see them all on a track together.
Yeah, for sure.
I think they kind of messed up. One of our cables is being weird. I don't know which one it is.
Technical difficulties. We're going to work through it. Episode 2, we're still working stuff out.
I think they should have flipped Assad, who does the last verse on Stigmata, with Danny Brown, because Assad has a much more chill flow about him, and Ride Slow is a very chill song. Danny Brown has a very percussive flow, and it's really exciting. Right. He's there to build up energy. Ride Slow is not an energetic song, and they dropped the ball on that. When I really listen to Danny Brown's verse and I just isolate what he's saying, he's doing a Danny Brown thing, but halfway through his verse, the drums cut out, and there's no drums, and you shouldn't have a Danny Brown song without drums or a Danny Brown verse. I think if they flipped it, it would have made Stigmata even better, and it would have made Ride Slow what it is.
For sure. Stigmata, man, that's a powerful song. I think there was visuals released with that one too. Yep. Previous to the album dropping, which the album is out now, right? It's not. It's no longer a leak.
It was.
We
released,
barely got it.
It was released yesterday, I want to say, and we've started to see some reviews leaked through. I want to touch on the actual reviews as well, because when I first got the album, I noticed it leaked. I was at work, and I said, "Oh, okay, it leaked. I'm gonna go download this when I get home." I got home, started downloading it, and I went immediately onto 4chan. And I went onto their music board.
Deep in the web.
Yeah, and I was like, oh man, I'm going to get pumped for this album. I'm a big fan of Black Hippy. I'm a big fan of TDE in general. And I start looking through and this might have influenced me, but I start looking through the 4chan thread about the album, and all I heard was, I'm fucking super disappointed. This is terrible. Is TDE done?
What?
It has and that's not Complex said the same thing about 5 hours ago. That if you Google right now, if you were to Google Absol these days, the first thing that's going to come up is a Complex article talking about how I think it's Absol. Did Absol ruin the high? If you scroll up on what you're looking at here, Absol kind of blows TDE's high with these days.
Wow. That's very critical.
And that
more
was
critical than us, you say.
And that was my initial response, to be honest. I was like, fuck, man, this is not what I wanted to hear at all. But if you actually look at the critical response, like just actual reviews, it's sitting at like a 7 out of 10 or higher. And it's got pretty good reviews. But there's certain articles that have been released that are just not happy at all.
That's, I mean, to be skeptical of the success or the kind of trajectory of where TDE lies and Black Hippies movement, at this point, you kind of sound like a hater if you're really breaking it down that far. I mean, I guess it's hard to say because I guess the theme that we're going to be seeing quite a bit is a lot of the people that we're reviewing and listening to nowadays have gained fame through the internet,
right?
Through various channels. So there's a lot of content out that preceded this release for Absol that he's kind of being held accountable for now to live up to. Whereas, Schoolboy didn't have as much material out there previous to his first album.
Yeah, well, I mean, he had like 2 or 3 things that he deemed as like major releases for him. He did Habits and Contradictions, and I think he had 2 other like mixtapes, but definitely not as much as Absol. And the thing about TDE and Black Hippy in general is that they, to go back to kind of internet views on them, they are looked at as indie blog darlings.
Yeah.
They love them. All these like people in the know have loved Black Hippy for a long time.
If I'm lying, I'm lying. If I'm lying, I'm lying. In dirt, that's a metaphor for dying. Rhyming like Morpheus foresaw me Satan's iron. That's more fire, that's more fire, that's more fire, that's more. Set that mouse trap and you fuck around and you fuck around and get smoked. Got that loud pack in these backwoods like summer camp. Well, on that, we used to dub cassettes, but now we popping Percocets. I don't be in no pain.
All right.
So we're back. Thanks for listening. Episode 2. Thank you for all your support. It's great to see that talking about kind of the topic, that the theme, the internet age and whatnot of our podcast and how it's kind of helping us. And we're able to reach out, record a show.
Right.
And we're on the web. We're on iTunes as well. Subscribe to us there. We're on SoundCloud. Follow the podcast there as well if you like to stream it.
Right. Whichever way you're finding this now, look it up the other way.
Right.
If you're listening to it on iTunes, go ahead and find us on SoundCloud. If you're listening to us on SoundCloud, go ahead and listen to us on iTunes.
We're going to give you options here. And, I am actually making my personal site, or not my personal site, but kind of the brand site, which is staytrue966.com. We're going to be hosting kind of the blog where we're going to post all of our podcasts here at Bootleg Report and some of our previous ones with the Alpha Chaos camp over there with Podcastinator.
Yuck, yuck.
Yuck, yuck. We're going to be putting up an image gallery as well, too, for maybe some of the behind-the-scenes images that we got going on from our little makeshift headquarters here.
Yeah. If you want to see our pretty faces or not so pretty faces, if you want to see how we do what we do, maybe you can get influenced to do you the same. To talk about the internet and how it's influenced just media in general, we're looking at a lot of different people popping up doing a lot of different things. We saw it with like the MySpace age and how that influenced music, but now we're seeing it with podcasts really blowing up.
Yeah.
It all, I look at it as kind of like an Adam Carolla started thing. Like he didn't start podcasting, but he really brought it to the forefront. He got people actually listening.
Well, yeah, because it became something that, wasn't just recording in GarageBand on your computer, but with its built-in, microphone and whatnot, to where there's legit podcast studios that are arguably bigger or more relevant for sure at this point than some of the radio stations and whatnot.
Oh, yeah.
So you got, guys like Adam Carolla and Joe Rogan and a lot of the big names, Doug Benson, that are just taking over the game. And I don't know. I feel a slight bit of accomplishment just knowing that, hey, man, we got this on iTunes. So
right. I mean, we're trying. We're doing something.
And let's talk about how this came together. I mean, we're definitely just a bunch of bullshitters that happen to have a good amount of audio equipment based on our hobbies and pastimes and just performing and recording music. And out of that comes a podcast pretty organically as well.
Yeah. I mean, to talk a little bit about ourselves, we didn't really talk about ourselves because we're not at this stage of the game, we're not really important or interesting.
We're definitely not important or interesting, but
but I mean, we both have a music background. I've been playing music for probably about over 10 years, probably about 15 years at my young age, performing, recording, making music, writing music, and I know you've been doing kind of the same.
Yeah. Started out in a band in middle school where we play. I remember playing like lunchtime in the amphitheater, and got into that. I was always playing. I was always drumming on things as a child, and transitioned that into playing in a shitty band. I was never musically talented enough to be like a big contributor to that band.
What did you play drums in the band?
No, I played bass.
You played bass. What kind of music did you guys play?
Oh, we did like the Korn and Limp Bizkit covers and good stuff. And that kind of led me into my love and appreciation for hip hop. In that, during that phase when kind of the rap rock and DJs were being integrated into music, that it really all started with those Korn and Limp Bizkit days, to where I ended up really falling in love with hip hop and kind of getting into that. So as far as like musical knowledge, I know you're a big Wu-Tang fan. I was never really exposed to a lot of that,
right?
More so like the West Coast stuff. And
I actually, when I got big into music, my dad is a musician. He played guitar for years and years and years. He's been playing music from West Coast to East Coast. He's been doing a lot of different stuff in rock bands. I grew up listening to like the Beatles and a lot of classic rock and stuff. And I kind of grew out of that and grew into punk rock, and I became big into that. And I hated hip hop.
Yeah, I definitely had that phase.
Honestly, I hated hip hop because I hated hip hop fans, because they would throw rocks at me and call me faggot, and they were really mean to me.
Damn.
But I kind of got almost as a fuck you to hip hop. I started listening to Wu-Tang, and I was like, I'm just gonna get into Wu-Tang, and I'm gonna like punk rock and Wu-Tang, and that's it. And then because of that, I started getting into some of the backpack rappers like Sage Francis and the whole Def Jux area, so Aesop Rock and LP and all that kind of stuff, the underground culture hip hop stuff.
Right.
And then I kind of just stopped caring.
Mm-hmm.
Like towards the end of high school and out of high school, I was just like, I don't care. I'm just gonna listen to hip hop. I'm gonna listen to punk rock. I'm gonna listen to indie rock. I'm gonna listen to classic rock. It doesn't matter. Yeah.
I mean, hopefully at some point too. I mean, we this is definitely. I think I put this in the hip hop category, hip hop rap category in iTunes as far as podcasts go, and to relate things to that. But the bootleg report, we want to cover everything.
Mm-hmm.
I hope to definitely grow it a little bit more. And cover various topics. We were looking through some of the torrent sites to find some of the newest torrents, but also, I mean, I listen to a lot of rock as well. I'm a huge Deftones fan, and definitely into Tool. I know not one of your favorite bands, but
nope.
I will mix it up. I'll throw a little bit of Deftones on, a little Mudvayne, some Slipknot. And I mean, most of the stuff I listen to as far as metal or rock is early 2000s type stuff like that, new metal.
Right.
But man, fuck with it. You gotta listen to what makes you happy and kind of gets that aggression out. Great workout music as well for the gym.
Yeah, I was listening to an interview with Ice-T. He was on a radio show that I listened to, and he was talking about music that he's promoting his new Body Count record.
They have that? That's out? That's coming out?
It's out now.
Okay.
you seem excited.
No, actually, it sounds just kind of funny to me, but I'm not excited for it, but I'll listen to it if I have to.
I listened to the first Body Count record just because I'm a crate digger. I'll go through and listen to, this was an album that people seemed interested in. Let me see why people seemed interested into it. So I'll listen to it and kind of form my opinion on it and toss it aside or throw it into just things I listen to. But he talked a lot about metal bands. He was talking about how much he's into Slayer and how much he's into Metallica and all these other bands. And it's like, you're Ice-T. You came in fucking just straight up like you were West Coast gangster rap.
Right.
Like personified.
Like real life too. Like I think the first gangster rapper that had the persona behind it, that this dude was really from the street. This dude's a real gangster.
Yeah, 6 a.m, police at my door. Like he was real gangster rap, and he was real gangster. And God, that sounds so white.
Yeah, super gangster.
he was super gangster. But he's talking about different types of music. And I think it's important to really grow yourself as an artist. If you're into music, you should listen to and explore other genres. And that's kind of what drew me into hip hop originally, because I'd kind of exhausted the pool of music that I was into. There's only so much punk rock that I can listen to before I'm like, fuck, this is all so terrible. Same with new metal. There's only so much you can listen to before like, this sounds just like this, or this album sounds exactly like this album. And it's just like, I don't want to hear that anymore. I want to hear something different.
All right, so that wraps up part 1 of episode 2 of the Bootleg Report podcast. I am Joe Luna, and on behalf of my friend Stephen Pringle, I would like to thank you for making it this far into the journey with us. This podcast ran a little bit long, so we had to split it in half. The conversation continues in part 2 of episode 2. So if you would like to hang out with us a little bit longer, go ahead and check us out there. Part 2, episode 2, Bootleg Report podcast. Thank you very much.